Time now for Morning Rounds with CBS News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. John LaPook and CBS News contributor Dr. Holly Phillips. First up on this Valentine's Day, important news about women's hearts. New research shows women have a harder time bouncing back from a heart attack, and stress may be to blame. Holly, tell us about this study.
Anthony, this was a large study. It came out in a journal called Circulation, and it looked at thousands of patients who just had heart attacks, both men and women. What they found was women reported more stress, and they also had a slower recovery in the first month after having a heart attack. Now, the study couldn't prove that the stress caused the slower recovery, but it did establish a really important link, and it's one of the first really big studies to look at the psychological effects on our recovery.
I think everyone thinks they know what stress does to them, but are there any universals for what it does to the body?
Sure. I mean, stress really releases a huge cascade of hormones and substances that raise inflammation in the body. It does things like raise your heart rate and blood pressure. But I think, at least in my practice, I see people who are really stressed have a harder time quitting smoking, have a harder time following a heart-healthy diet, or even exercising. So I think it has a huge umbrella effect on how we approach our health.
John, women also have something called a worse health status after a heart attack. What does that mean?
Well, they look at things like chest pain, angina, about the quality of their life, what kind of life they're having, and how they report that, and also their mental health, and all of those are worse.
Another new study looks at the power of cat naps. For some, they may be the right antidote for a lack of sleep. Researchers found 30-minute naps help reduce stress, just what we were talking about, and boost the immune system of the sleep-deprived. I know they work for me, Holly, but now they're widely effective?
You know, Anthony, this was a very small study, but one I'm kind of rooting for. I'm a big nap enthusiast myself. They looked at a small group of men in a sleep lab on 2 different occasions. Researchers restricted them to only getting 2 hours of sleep a night. But the second time, the men were able to take 2 half-hour naps the next day. What they found was, after having that extreme sleep deprivation, there were changes in markers of hormones that are affected by stress, and also substances that affect our immune system, something called interleukin-6, which helps to fight viruses. So they saw these really, major physiologic effects on the body, but the night after the men were able to take 2 naps, all of those markers went back to normal. It shows that napping might have some protective or reparative effect for the body.
We traditionally hear, I think, 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Do you have a recommendation if we're taking a nap? Is there a window you should try to fall between?
Right. Well, the National Sleep Foundation feels as though one of the magic numbers is about that 30-minute nap. We know that it boosts our mood, our alertness, our cognitive abilities to learn. It might be that longer naps have the same effect, but then you're more prone to get grogginess afterwards. So 30 minutes might be the magic number.
Experts are changing their minds again about what we should and should not eat. A federal panel is ready to reverse 5 decades of advice on avoiding cholesterol. The recommendation could appear in the next version of dietary guidelines due out sometime this year. This seems big.
Yeah, well, they use the term nutrient of concern. They're saying cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. What the heck does that mean? Well, cholesterol is still important in your blood. So the higher the bad cholesterol, the higher your risk of having a heart attack and other bad things. But what they're saying is, in terms of the amount of cholesterol in your diet, there's no good evidence that the amount of cholesterol that you consume directly translates to a significantly elevated level of cholesterol in the blood.
Interesting. Well, Woody Allen's 1970s sci-fi comedy Sleeper predicted healthy eating 200 years in the future.
Has he asked for anything special?
Yes, this morning for breakfast, he requested something called wheat germ, organic honey, and tiger's milk.
Oh, yes, those are the charm substances that some years ago were felt to contain life-preserving properties.
You mean there was no deep fat? No steak or cream pies or hot fudge?
Those were thought to be unhealthy. Precisely the opposite of what we now know to be true.
Incredible.
So, John, does this mean we can eat whatever we want?
We cannot eat everything we want. I mean, the current guidelines say that we should have less than 300 milligrams of cholesterol in our diet a day, and the egg has 200. And what the new guidelines are going to say is that we don't know that we need to control cholesterol intake. But unfortunately, all those wonderful things that we love to eat, the fatty cheeseburger with the bacon and everything else, and the maltons and the frapp and the french fries, they not only have cholesterol, they have trans fats, they have saturated fats, they have all sorts of other things. So the bottom line is, it's just what your mother mother told you when you were young. Fruit and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy, and lean meat. And there's no free lunch, there's no free dinner, there's no free breakfast.
It really begs the question, though, if we're not getting high cholesterol from what we're eating, then how are we getting it? Is it genetic?
You know, Vinita, it's interesting. Our blood cholesterol isn't just affected by what we eat, but also how our bodies make and process and dispose of bad cholesterol, LDL. We have to remember, you know, we don't just take in cholesterol from food. Our bodies actually make all the cholesterol we need on its own. So things that affect how we process it have to do with some things we can change and some things we can't. Genetics is a big one. Our age, postmenopausal women process cholesterol a little more slowly. And exercise can arguably, you know, increase how we process cholesterol.
But I'm wondering here with this about face on cholesterol in terms of the warnings, I mean, how do we know what to believe now? Because something we've been told for a long time is now, never mind.
Well, we shouldn't get upset and want to throw a brick through the television set when the guidelines change. Guidelines change. About every 5 years there was a study, about half of what we tell people has some sort of little bit change to it. Right. And that's a good thing. It's called progress. I mean, we don't drill holes in people's skulls anymore to let out the evil vapors. It's called medical progress, so it's okay.
A new nationwide report finds more Americans than ever use mind and body practices. The study is based on the 2012 National Health Interview Survey. Some 21 million adults and 1.7 million children roll out their yoga mats to try and improve their health. That 21 million is double the number from 2002. And almost as many Americans receive chiropractic or osteopathic manipulation or practice meditation.
Finally, what better time than Valentine's Day to take a look at the chemistry of love? We've all looked at certain couples and thought they have great chemistry together. But what really determines chemistry between two people? New research reveals that attraction goes far deeper than experts previously expected or explored. It's becoming increasingly apparent that biology actually can be a matchmaker. Really?
Yeah, really. There's a long research thread that shows in evolutionary biology that the microbes that are in organisms can actually affect mating behavior in their hosts. And there is also evidence that the microbiome, all those trillions of bacteria that we have in our body, they can affect body odor. We know that pheromones, that smells can affect mating behavior. So I wonder in the future, as we get this more and more research, we know more and more about this, whether dating services are going to ask for a sample of your microbiome and try to match people up that way.
Yeah, I have to say, if my husband's watching now, I definitely do not want pheromones instead of flowers of chocolate for Valentine's Day. Just so the research isn't there yet.
So romantic. Dr. Holly Phillips, Dr. John LaPook, thanks so much.